It's affected the current state of golf already in the fact that the reigning PGA champ, after one of the most endearing and exciting championships, is not there. I mean, again, I can't believe it's been a year. When I just remember we were all coming out of a lot of quarantines and just seeing Phil being surrounded and Brooks Koepka being jostled with that surgically repaired knee by a bunch of patrons, to use the Masters phrase, just surrounding Phil with his big aviators and flashing the grin and the thumbs up, and he's not there. So what is the general sense of things at Southern Hills a couple days before the first ball flies?
Yeah, there's a void here. I mean, that really was a defining performance by Phil. And there's a sense of disbelief. You know, whether Phil was suspended or took a voluntary leave, it's pretty clear that's just semantics. I mean, the PGA Tour put him on ice. But it was now been 90 days since those first comments. 90 days has been the typical length of a serious PGA Tour suspension in the past. Even though they don't talk about these things publicly, it's like the Kremlin. But enough information is leaked out. We know how they handle their business. It would have been wildly excessive to suspend Phil for longer than that. He didn't break any laws. Now, he did violate some unwritten rules, and he did violate the player handbook, which says you can't work against the business interests of the tour. But ultimately, he's been squeaky clean from a tour standpoint. This is his first major offense. If Phil had wanted to play this PGA Championship, he would be here. Because the PGA of America is not the PGA Tour. They're different organizations. And the PGA of America, which runs the tournament, does not have to abide by anything the tour says. Phil's defending champ. He's exempt into the field. They would never have barred him, the PGA of America, from playing in their own tournament. And it would have been a ratings bonanza, his return to the public domain. So I think this was Phil's choice, and I think it tells you that he's just not ready to face the tough questions. He's not ready to declare his allegiance, and he's still kind of game planning the best way to return to public life.
Any communication between you and Phil in the last 90 days, Alan?
After the excerpt dropped, he sent me a text in which he expressed his displeasure, and I wrote him back. He didn't respond, and then subsequently went back to him. The text never went through, and talking to other people, theirs aren't going through, so it's pretty clear he changed his number. But I did send him a copy of the book weeks ago with a handwritten note, and I wanted him to see what was in it before the public, and if he was worried about coming back this week in case there was going to be any other earthquakes, I wanted him to see it as a very fair and balanced book. It was actually written with a good amount of affection because I've always enjoyed writing about Phil and being in his, watching him do his thing and being in his orbit. And so, and I said that in my note to him. I have not gotten a critique on the book from him yet, so that may be forthcoming. But, he's in San Diego. He's playing golf every day. I've had people sending me photos and videos of him at Rancho Santa Fe Golf Club and the Bridges and the Farms, like all these private courses in the San Diego area. And his swing looks good. It looks like he's put on a little bit of weight, which is fine. He's got a little bit of a beard, but he's coming back to the game. But that doesn't mean he's ready to return to public life. So it's going to be fascinating, his next move. And, there's some real milestones. The first is the Saudi event in early June. The week after is the U.S. Open, which we all know is, an annual psychodrama for Phil. It's the missing piece of the career Grand Slam. And he was out of the field until he won the PGA Championship. Now he has a 5-year exemption to try and get that last crown jewel, right? And if he skips the U.S. Open when he's exempt into the field, that this self-imposed exile is serious. But again, I think right now he's just buying time and he's waiting to see how things are going to play out with the Saudis, and he's waiting to see if other players are going to be the first one out of the bunker or to try and test the tour's resolve. And there's just the landscape is changing rapidly, and Phil's caught in the middle of all of it, and he's just buying himself some more time.
Well, I guess one of the ways, Alan, to change the narrative if you are running the PGA Championship is to put Tiger, McIlroy, and Spieth together right out of the box to start things off on Thursday and have them play together for 2 days. How do you think Phil's going to look at that and let that sink in over the next couple of days, do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure there'll be some FOMO. You know, he loves the big stage. He's a showman, and he thrives on the energy of the crowd. And nobody's signed more autographs than Phil Mickelson over the last 3 decades. So he likes to feel that love, and it's gonna. I think it's gonna be very bittersweet for him. But you know, it's just Phil has he's created this mess with his, you know, the secret dealings with the Saudis, and now it's just gonna have to play out. So. But yeah, I'm sure it's going to be hard for him not to be here, and it's honestly a great golf course for him. The way they've set it up with instead of long, tangly rough around the greens, it's shaved down swales, and you really need a lot of touch and imagination and short game talent. And it would have been great to watch Phil, you know, try and navigate this course. And so, yeah, if he tunes in and he sees those 3 guys out there, knowing that he probably should have been in that group, but it's going to be very bittersweet for him.
Well, congrats on your book. Again, just as an example of you pointing out that it was written with a level of endearment. Just that first chapter, I don't want to give too much away, with you just unloading everybody's favorite Phil story. I was waiting for it to turn at some point to, you know, the stories of a guy with a great sense of humor and then a huge heart, talking to people who's, you know, dealing with cancer and things like that. Just a story where he would be an a-hole, and it doesn't happen. Like you don't have it in there, you know?
Yeah.
So
yeah, I mean, as I said, like my goal was always to write a really fair, balanced book, and because of some of the, you know, there's been all this energy around the excerpts and some of the juicy bits. I mean, I enjoyed writing about Phil's virtues, and he's done a lot of great things in his life, and he's touched a lot of people, and that's all in the book too. And it was not my intention or my job to legislate how people should feel about Phil. I just tried to present as comprehensively as I could this really big, complicated life, and people will take from it what they will. And I try to stay out of the way of the story. But yeah, I'm glad you picked up on that, because people have said, is this a takedown of Phil? You know, it was never intended to be that. And you know, some of the blowback and some of these repercussions that have come out of the things he told me, I knew it was going to provoke controversy. I never imagined it would send him into exile. And you know, Phil talked his way out of many controversies in the past, and I assumed he would do the same thing. But I think he wildly underestimated the emotion around Saudi Arabia, which did supply 15 of the 19 9/11 hijackers, and you know, they did assassinate a Washington Post reporter who was a resident of the United States. And Phil thought he was being a cagey businessman and was engaging in these hardball negotiations, but I don't think he estimated. Well, I know he didn't, that the emotional reaction that he was in league with the Saudis, and so he made some fundamental miscalculations. But there is a road back for Phil. I mean, Tiger Woods has never been more beloved than he is at this moment, despite his scandals. And Phil can feel that love again as well. But what he decides on the Saudi question is going to be fundamental, because if he goes all in with them after all the things he says and us knowing his true feelings, it's going to be hard for a lot of golf fans to forgive him. And so that's why I think he's taking a little extra time to make that decision, because it's really going to define this last act of his career.
Hey, you watched all the way to the end. Thanks for that. Watch more right here.